Owning a business should be fun. Yeah, I know you're laughing now, but it's right. And for me, that just underlines the importance of cash. It goes back to, you can't take your profit and loss account to, the merchants or the supermarket or the travel agents to say, I've made a profit. Yeah, but you've got no cash.
They'll just say, my accountant deals with that. What I would be saying is the numbers in your business is your business, and that is 100% your responsibility.
You go to the top of the class in terms of engaging with the bank. It just gives you so much more credibility because I talk about if you know your numbers, know your business.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Talks Trades. In this week's episode, I'm with Craig Rattray from Know Your Numbers. We're going to get a dive into how you as construction business owners can learn how to know your numbers, and we're going to just get a bit on his journey as well and how he got to this point. Hi Craig, welcome to the show.
Thanks Jamie, looking forward to this.
Good man. I'm not going to start with saying how did you get into the trades, but I will go back a bit, and I know you've got an accountancy background, but I'd like to sort of know how you went from that to then more what you're doing now, which is like, I've heard you saying accountancy is a bit boring and stuff like that, and that's the compliance side, and you're now doing the exciting side. So take us back a bit, mate. Where did it all start for you?
Jeez, it actually goes back. I can remember in primary 2, my teacher, Miss Black, I was her first class, so she had her in primary 1 and primary 2. She started talking about college and university, and I had no idea what that was. And as it turned out, nobody in my family had ever gone to college or university. So that I guess had planted a seed. And then as I progressed, I decided I wanted to go into business. And I didn't really understand what business was. And I thought, what's the best way to get into business? Do an accountancy degree or do a law degree? And I chose accountancy because I was better at numbers than words. Right, okay. From there, because I even remember she gave me algebra to do in primary 2, which was fantastic because I just found numbers easy. And I guess it stemmed from there, and did an accountancy degree at University of Strathclyde. Worked in McDonald's almost full time during that time as well. So it was a hard graft because I basically needed the money to put me through the university, and I needed to make sure I had enough money for let's call it extracurricular activities was. And from there, I got offers from the six global accounting firms, and I joined the number one accountancy firm in the world. Wow. Did my accountancy degree. I never wanted to be an accountant. That was not the plan. For me, accountants are generally people who tell you what happened last week, last year, right? And that's of no interest. You can't change that. I always wanted to do something a bit more exciting. And having done my degree, qualified as a chartered accountant, and that would have been in 1991. I then went into private equity. So basically I was investing in companies, which was a lot more fun. I'd done a bit of corporate finance during my training, which is great. So basically advising businesses on raising money, buying companies, selling companies. And for me, that's where the excitement was. That's where the interest was, because you could build value rather than looking at something that you can't change it. It's already happened. We don't really care what happened back then. So did that. I worked for 3 different private equity and venture capital companies over a period of 6 years. But the big change for me was when I moved into industry. I took a role in a company. It was a company in the south side of Glasgow. They were turning over £3-4 million. They'd just been sold to a US-based company. They were a New York Stock Exchange listed company. And I went in as financial controller because they needed 3-day flash figures. And this would have been in 1998. Mm-hmm. Yes, long time ago. And
I was 8, by the way. No one made me feel older.
So they needed 3-day flash figures, 5-day full reporting packs that went into the main board in Portland and Oregon with my divisional office in Houston. Yeah. And at the time, they had a 60-year-old accountant who did everything in pencil and paper in between cigarette breaks. So we'd really had to go in and transform the place. So genuinely, I learned more in my year there than I had in the previous 9 years doing my CA training and working in private equity and venture capital.
So it's that hands-on experience and actually just having to fix something as you're there doing it.
It was the whole... So the business owner he was an engineer and a sales guy. Mm-hmm. His brother was also an engineer, and he liked pottering about with the machines. I did everything else other than that.
Yeah.
And the key thing was to make sure we were paying suppliers and paying the wages in time.
Yeah.
Now, the company who'd bought us hadn't done very, very good due diligence because they were losing a ton of money and they were bleeding cash.
Yeah.
So I quickly realised the importance of up-to-date financial information and basically cash flow, because I
Yeah.
had to keep production running. That was it. So I was always managing the cash, making sure we can pay the wages, making sure we can pay the suppliers.
Yeah.
So it was fantastic. And from there, I worked with my former boss and a couple of private equity companies. We worked together for 5-6 years doing raising money, buying companies, selling companies, doing a wee bit of hands-on financial management as well. And
It's
from there,
exciting stuff.
it was just really interesting.
Mhm.
You know, thoroughly enjoyed it. But from there, I moved into, I did some work in industry as a full-time FD in another business that was struggling a bit, but also grew by acquisition. I worked for a name-listed company in acquisitions. I worked with 4 high net worth individuals, Credit Suisse and a Scandinavian private equity company. We invested €1 billion in German property in the space of 6 months. So I was part-time FD, corporate finance director. Brilliant. I was in Isle of Man, London, all over Germany. Some of the grottiest industrial estates you will ever see. I tell you, it didn't look as nice as this place. So that was great experience. And I then joined a corporate finance and business management boutique. I was a director there for 3 years and decided that enjoying the work, but it was clear the amount of money I was making them compared to the amount of money I was taking home. So I basically just decided that I'd set up myself. So 2009, set up myself. And
I always wondered about that. See, like being someone who is that close to the numbers and then like really being hands-on with that and seeing everything that's coming in and going out. But I've always kind of found that I would think traditionally, like accountants are sort of more reserved and maybe not as likely to go and start their own business.
Yeah.
Where does, like, did you just have a different bit of drive then? So you're seeing that and you're thinking, I could do this. Like, where does that come from?
I've never seen myself as an accountant.
Yeah.
Like, an accountant for me is someone who basically keeps score.
Yeah.
They look back and tell you what happened last week, last month, last year. They do their tax, your VAT, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Compliance, basically.
That's the way I think of accountants.
Yeah.
I've always seen myself as a sort of forward-looking finance person aiming to try and help people build value in their business. So grow by acquisition, grow organically, raise money, and take the business from here to there and sell out at a nice figure somewhere down the line.
So like you said then, so do you feel like that was always there then?
I don't think so. You know, I didn't come from that background.
Yeah.
I can't go back and find anyone that, you know, I was close to who had done that.
Yeah.
I've got no idea how it happened. You know, I just ended up here.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to work with businesses and sharing the rewards with them. So sharing the risk and the reward. And rather than traditional corporate finance, business management, consultancy, it's our charge out rate's X, we've done Y number of hours, you owe me X times Y. I hate that model.
Yeah.
For me, it's all about value. So I was always aligning myself with some element of success fee for something to happen or perhaps something not to happen, or having equity in the business as well, or some sort of upside.
Yeah.
And that's what I've got in place with my clients now. So that if I can take you from here to here, you can pay me a modest fee, but let's share a wee bit in the upside.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it becomes a no-brainer for the company involved because I'm aligning myself with them. And if your plan is to grow the business to get to a certain point and sell out, then I'm aligned with you.
Yeah. So after that experience then, when you were in there basically doing everything bar what the 2 engineers were doing, you then went and you started on your own at that point, was that?
I was in partnership with someone at that point. So
right.
in fact, I was still self-employed for 5 or 6 years. And I was doing slightly different things because at that point I would have been late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
And my business partner was 10 years older. So he was doing more of the strategic stuff.
Yeah.
And I was doing more of the hands-on and implementation.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, moving forward sort of 15, 20 years, I like to think I'm a lot better at the strategic stuff now. I still think I'm better than he was at it anyway. We have that joke. We're still good pals. I was actually speaking to him last night. Yes.
Hi guys, I hope you're enjoying the episode. Just to let you know that Craig has given us 1 free space on his Know Your Numbers course. It's £3,600 plus VAT, so it's a huge giveaway. If you want to get involved in it, just scan the QR code or look for the link in the description in the bio and go and enter to win. So when did like Know Your Numbers actually come into existence?
Right, so that happened round about lockdown time. Because one of the things I've always done with my clients is, in one of the first meetings we will have, I will say to them, what do you understand in terms of financial statements and accounts? Okay. And normal response is, I get by. Right. And I'll generally then say, okay, I don't want to offend you here, but let me just take you back and give you a wee tutorial, right? And I'll explain what a P&L is, what a profit and loss account is,
Yes.
what it does, and the makeup of it, and a balance sheet. And 9 times out of 10, it was like, wow, I didn't know that. No one's ever told me that. So I always knew that, because most business owners set up because they're good at a particular trade or doing something. They're roofers, they build houses, whatever they provide. They've never been taught in running a business, never had accounts explained to them, don't really understand cash and funding. And for me, that's the big thing that can make a huge difference in terms of running your business if you can get that right.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I think until you know your numbers, you've not got a business.
You don't. I mean, it's
Like, you actually don't. It's the day that I sort of realised that I didn't know my numbers was the day that I sort of realised I could have a good business here, because now I know what I don't know. Now I need to find out what I need to know, and then that journey started. So
I think that's the key point, and this is where I'm very critical of accountants. You've heard me before talking about accountants, and I'm critical of bad accountants. Right, there are many good accountants out there. I work with a lot of them. Sadly, there's more bad accountants out there, and what I mean by that is they're not giving advice to people like yourself who've set up businesses and are ambitious and want to grow. And typically what happens is you go to your accountant 8.5 months after the end of the year. They'll say, here's your year-end accounts, sign them. This is what you owe the revenue. Send them a check next week, okay? And I'll see you again next year. Here's my invoice, right? There is zero added value there. And if you think about it, if you're getting that information, it's potentially 21 months out of date from the first month of that prior year. So if you've been performing that whole time, running the business the way you think is working, doing all your pricing, you could have been pricing things completely wrong all the way along, but you don't know. You're then finding out 8.5 months after year end what your turnover is, what your profit is.
It's scary.
I like to approach it differently, and I've had a few discussions with accountants. I've done some webinars and seminars and sessions for them. I think an accountant should think of themselves as a co-pilot, and the business owner is the pilot of the aeroplane. So if you think about getting into an aeroplane, you've got the dashboard in front of you. Business owner is the guy who's flying the plane. Okay, so he's charging on. You as the co-pilot, being the accountant, you should be sitting there making sure he's got the right information. So you've got all the information on the dashboard in terms of your current information, your key performance indicators, some of the things that tell you whether you've had a good day, a good week, or a good month, or a bad day, a bad week, or a bad month, so you can do something about it. They should be then telling you the direction you're going in. That's your forecast. And they should also be making sure you get enough fuel for the journey. And that's your funding or your cash. And if you can then sit there as an accountant and gel with the business owner, your fees become irrelevant. Because if you can take the business from there to there, where they grow from, let's say, $500,000, $1 million to 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're maybe making, rather than 50 grand profit, they're making 300, 400, 500 profit, your fees become irrelevant. Because what you've done is you've increased that business substantially by helping them, and they've got a lot less stress and a much more valuable business.
That would be a more like quality over quantity model, wouldn't it? Because it would be, you would probably you would need to have less clients to be able to give them that focus, but then you would, whereas the traditional accountant model is probably more, let's get as many people in on that once a year compliance box ticking exercise and just get on to the next one, which is a shame.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because we all need accountants. I've got my own accountant, and I don't even do my own VAT return. My accountant deals with a lot. So we all need that, but we need good accountants to do that. I liken that type of work to buying cars, buying tyres for your car. Right? I bet you've never sat with Kelly on a Friday night and said, you know what, darling, I think we should go and look at car tyres tomorrow. We don't do that. It's a grudge purchase. You do it because you have to, because your tyres are illegal, someone's told you, or you've got a puncture. That's pretty much it. And the whole compliance side of accountancy is like that as well. So what happens is people, business owners who don't know what they don't know, will then typically go to the cheapest accountant or the one their pal or their family said.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, no, there's a different way to do this. You think about, if you're ambitious in your business, if you can get up-to-date information that tells you where you are, where you've been, and where you're going, you'll drive your business forward and you'll make much better decisions. That's where Know Your Numbers was born out of.
Yeah. So you wanted to empower people with that knowledge and basically help. Well, you're not going to do that stuff and implement it for them. So you're actually giving them the information of how they can then find a good co-pilot. Would that be right?
Exactly. And also helping them find the right accountant. Because what will typically happen in the Know Your Numbers sessions, we'll do first session, we'll talk about profit and loss accounts and balance sheets, I'll explain a few things. And normally we've got 10 or 12 people in the group, and 4, 5, maybe 6 of them will say, my accountant's never done that.
Yeah.
My accountant, I see him once a year, or I see her once a year. So there's always a requirement then to introduce good accountants, because they then understand the difference that can make. Because it is about, it's not about knowing how to do a P&L for the sake of it, or a balance sheet. It's about, how do you get the information to run your business? Because that's what I like to say. How do you know you've had a good day, a good week, or a good month?
Yeah.
And rather than just saying, all my staff were out on site, or all my vehicles were out, or we've been really busy and the phones are busy. No, point something to me financially that says,
tangible,
here's exactly
actual real evidence.
Exactly. And you can then start using that to drive the business better, and running the business against a forecast. So you then look at your variances. Here's what we said we'd do. Here's what we did. Why is it different? Is it good different? Let's understand it and do more. Is it bad different? What do we need to fix? Let's get the operational people in, make some changes. And that's how you learn from it. And the thing is, there's nothing difficult about that, because the other thing accountants do is they like to make out that it's this dark art. You, Mr. Business Owner, you're too stupid to understand it, so I'm not going to tell you. It's not. It's bloody simple. It is very, very simple.
Yeah, you can get a bit of that sort of cloak and dagger type thing, and it's like, this is actually my business. I know that a couple of the consultancy clients that I work with, they've said, I try and get that from my accountant, but it's quite hard to get a hold of them, or they're not really forthcoming with that information. I'm thinking, that's your information.
It's your business.
You need that. Like, this is your business we're talking about.
Exactly.
Here. Things like we use like Xero accountancy software. That was probably a big game changer.
Yes.
But it's obviously then we've got someone in house who actually keeps it up to date every single day. So that's the next important thing. Is
absolutely,
it's fine. Understanding is one thing, how to look at this information and what you should be looking at. But the second thing is that information actually accurate, and is it up to date? So there's a whole piece on that probably.
Exactly. One of the things I learned, this takes me back to about 1994, 95, right? As you know, I'm old. One of my first bosses taught me, if you do everything every day, you're only ever a day behind.
Yep.
Right, and what you're doing with someone coming in and doing the bank reconciliation every day, processing the invoices, issuing your sales invoices, doing all the financial admin. Come in the next day, you do the same. You do the same every day. End of the month, you can close off quickly because you've only got one more day to do.
Yep.
End of the year, you can do the same. You can close off quickly. And what that does is it gives you real-time information. Rather than being 20, 21
It gets a bit overwhelming at that point. And then what you often find is, right, we'll just write off those last 3 months. We'll not worry about that, and we'll just start afresh here. And it's like, it doesn't really work like that.
Exactly.
You've got to be on the pulse. So let's try and kind of almost declutter it a wee bit, right? So there'll be construction business owners likely listening to this, and they're probably, I'd imagine that first part of the conversation there, like we're kind of throwing bits back and forward. Like I'm probably quite fortunate to, I wouldn't say I'm expert on knowing my numbers, but I certainly know them a lot more than what I used to. We're into the multi-millions now and stuff. It's like you can't afford to not know your numbers. But if I take myself back, and this is where I'll probably relate to these business owners maybe listening, it was probably a bit overwhelming to do something about it. And then the first thing that flagged up was,
because again, you can't go to the bank and say, I need funding. They'll say, question will typically, how much? Well, it's between 50 quid and 50 million. It's probably somewhere in between. You can't do that. Your credibility is gone. If you can go with the forecast that says, I need, 200 grand or 500 grand or whatever, here's what I'm going to do with it. And here's a journey I'm going to go on. Yeah. And here's also all my historic information and my up-to-date information. You go to the top of the class in terms of engaging with the bank.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It just gives you so much more credibility, because I talk about, if you know your numbers, know your business.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business.
True. I think something that came to me there just as I was thinking about that, I remember that there I heard a lot of people, and I probably used to say this as well, being a roofer to trade and done exactly what you'd said there. Me and my brother, one van, me and a couple of other guys in a van, maybe a few subbies, and then you've got scaffolding subbies, you're buying all these materials in. Before you know it, you're actually like, you're up over £1 million and you're like, I've not got a clue what I'm doing on the financial side here, but I'm good at this, I'm good at roofing, I'm good at customer care, I'm good at leading a team of guys, I'm good at bringing work in, I'm good at sales and marketing and stuff. And then you realise, right, something's not quite right. But I think I probably did used to do this, and I know that most trades business owners they'll just say, my accountant deals with that. And what I would be saying is, that is 100%. The numbers in your business is your business, and that is 100% your responsibility.
Absolutely.
It has to be.
And making the assumption that your accountant is dealing with it is a big mistake. Your accountant can deal with it. And this again is where business owners need to be educated. I keep saying this to accountants. You've got to educate your client. Yeah. Tell your client that rather than seeing them once a year, really, they're growing, you want to see them once a month. Yeah. Help them put the systems and procedures in place that sorts out zero, so things are coded to the right areas, so you're using all the right apps, so you've got real-time information. And actually you're sitting down with them every month to say, here's what you said you'd do, here's what you did, here's why it's different. And give that knowledge, because if you're doing that, you've then got the information to make better decisions. Because there is not a business owner out there who can honestly put their hand in their heart and say that they have never worried about cash, right? Particularly in the trades. Yeah,
definitely in the trades.
It's awful, and working for some of the bigger companies where the payment patterns and terms are not the best. You've really got to be on it. And you've really got to be managing this. So you can get your accountant to do it. Now, not all accountants can do it. Some accountants are just geared up to do the compliance. That's fine. But ask the question. Yeah. And I spend a lot of time educating people on the questions they should be asking their accountant. Again, that's what comes out of Know Your Numbers. Yeah. It's about understanding what are the questions you should be asking. What should your accountant be doing for you? What's your accountant not telling you that they should be? Yeah. And it's giving the business owner that ammunition to allow them to take it up again. Because most business owners will not argue with their accountant or the bank because they don't know. If the accountant says something, they'll agree with it. They'll just say, okay.
And that is probably where your Know Your Numbers comes in, because you're going in with the knowledge. You've actually got a bit of a foundation. Like the way that I had to learn all of this stuff was actually through having, I think we got onto our third accountant before things started to really work for us. And so that's just mistake, learning from it, learning from it, and thinking, is this what this should be? There actually was literally nowhere to go. And then it's making me think of that post I seen on LinkedIn the other day, and somebody said, if only this existed, where you could be in a classroom setting and somebody's going to tell you how to know your numbers and all these different things. And I was just I just tagged you right in it because you're fresh in my mind as well. And I thought, there you go, it does exist. But that never used to exist when I was doing it. And I made all of these bad mistakes, but you're actually you don't know yet. You just don't know.
But that's you don't know what you don't know. It's like I say this in the did a Know Your Numbers book, and one of the things I say on it is, can you imagine the different decisions you would make if you knew this information way back when you started?
Exactly.
As I say, it's like the old Chinese proverb: the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time's today. Yes. It's the same with Know Your Numbers. The best time is to learn it a day before you set up in business. The second time is
and my experience as well, this is probably again just for the trades business owners from that side, but it probably took us a good 6 months of pain really, and to start to understand just a small snippet of our numbers. So we had been going on the traditional, get to the end of the financial year, 8.5, 9 months later, the accountant's saying to you, right, that's your year-end accounts due, where's everything at, send me what you've got. And you did all of that, and then you found out how you did 9 months ago. It was crazy, but I just thought, right, that's fine. But then we moved towards, at that time, we went quarterly management accounts. So it wasn't a monthly straight away, which we're now on monthly, but at that time it was quarterly. And what happened was the first 3 months was almost like that new accountant. So there was a handover process. It was a new accountant getting all the information, making sure zero was up to date, just kind of trying to tidy everything up and get to grips on it. So at the first 3 months, nothing really totally made sense. We didn't know how accurate it was. Sure. But then we started through that. by taking that first 3 months information, we said, let's tie that to a number in our business. Like, how much works did we get complete that week? How many sales did we do? What is the profit on that? And we tried to piece it together. And then another 3 months passed, and when we got to the 6 months part, that's when the actual decisions started to happen.
Yes, because you're building up that pattern. You're basically, what you're talking about there is that's basically key performance indicators. That's basically allowing you to know how well you have performed.
Yep.
And then also you start picking up trends. You can benchmark against what other people are doing. Are we doing it well?
So at that point, we had 6 months of data that told us, we were doing work for house builders at the time, and we'd worked really hard to get in with the house builders, from being like man in a van to actually working with like national house builders. We thought that was great, but what the data told us was the margin was too tight, and we just couldn't make money on that.
Yes.
And we would either need to go all in on that volume wise and put all our eggs in that one basket in order to try and make that model work, or go back to what our existing model had been, which was serving private homeowners.
Yes.
And at that point, I looked at it, weighed it all up, and we just went back to the private homeowner model, which meant for us cash flow, deposits, payment plans, our payment terms, no 30, 60, 90 days from a national house builder, but literally like our own payment plans, and did things on our own terms, and that's allowed us to organically grow to this point.
Yes, makes a huge difference.
I know you touch on funding, but we could probably go and get funding if we really needed it, because we've shown that we know our numbers enough. We've got the financial information there to actually have seen it. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is, like, for anyone listening, like, just like, it doesn't need to be like that hamster wheel over and over again and just accept it because, oh, well, that's my accountant, it'll be too scary to change. Like, if your accountant is just somebody who just does compliance, like, just come away from them and go to somebody who specialises in management accounts.
It's really important, I think, from a trades perspective as well. Something that I should mention is that it's very important to understand the difference between direct costs and indirect costs, or cost of sales and overheads. Yeah. And typically accountants don't classify these properly in the accounts. And what I mean by that is, if you think of your business, okay, going out fixing someone's roof, okay, the direct cost for you of fixing that roof is the labour going out and the materials, okay, related cost, vans, scaffolding, whatever as well, right? Okay. Now, those costs don't exist unless you've got that job. Okay, so they are directly attributable to that job. If you think of your overheads, or what I like to call infrastructure costs, because they are the infrastructure you need to run the business. You've got the building, so you've got rent, rates, insurance, the admin team, marketing, all of those things. They happen regardless of what work you've got on. And until you can actually properly differentiate between the two and collate them properly, you then don't know what your proper margin is that you're making. And, you know, without getting too technical, as something else people get mixed up with is gross margin and markup as well, because one's based on sale price, one's based on cost price. And they're often talking at just in different ways. So it's really vital you understand that. So we do a lot of that work as well in explaining direct costs, indirect costs, margins, pricing, quotations, and all of those things to actually start getting that right.
I think another thing is, as well, is like, don't be scared to go into that room thinking, oh, I'll feel stupid. Because it's like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Like, go in with that bit of curiosity to go, I want to learn this. And
you've got to,
and you absolutely can. Like, I think of some of my daily habits. Like, I don't do anything in terms of filling zero in or reconciling or stuff. We've got staff for that, which is great. But like, I literally go into zero and just look every day. Just, it's a habit. Just look, see what's happening there. Habit. Was there any outstanding invoices? Like, what's the profit and loss looking like? Although it's probably not quite as tidy as when we get the monthly management accounts. It won't it's not quite but it's close enough, and you can kind of use it as a gauge and a bit of metric and say, this is looking like we're on the right path.
I like all my clients and anyone I'm working with to ask 3 questions every day. So someone has to ask these questions in the business. It's normally the bookkeeper or the admin person. Okay. The first question is, because it's a big focus on cash, is how much cash do we have? Okay, so you do that. We go into your bank, reconcile it. You know, zero, it feeds in automatically. Reconcile your bank account. You know exactly where you are today. Okay. Question 2, who's got our cash? Most businesses give credit, whatever it is. 15 days, 30 days, 40 days, whatever, okay? So because you've reconciled your bank, you're now up to date with who owes you money. You can then go through that and see who owes you money. Is it due, is it falling due, or is it overdue? And then chase it.
Yeah.
Okay, So then that'll improve the cash position. And then the third question to ask is, how do we get more cash? And that comes back to the KPIs you were talking about, key performance indicators. Have 3 or 4 different metrics in the business that allow you to establish where you've had a good day, a good week, or a good month. And if you do that every day, you then start really focusing on cash. And that makes a big difference, because you can have a profitable business, particularly showing in construction. You could be making all sorts of assumptions on your work in progress, showing that you're profitable, but you've no cash. And as you know, you can't pay your employees with profit. You can't pay your suppliers with profit. If you don't have the cash, the funding.
Profit could be fresh air a lot of the time.
And that's the big problem, because if your numbers aren't right, you don't know that.
And sometimes you could be profitable come the end of the year, but you might not get to the end of the year.
Exactly.
Because you
don't have the cash. Exactly.
Yes. Good.
And it's understanding that difference. There is a difference between profit and cash, because it's all about the timing.
And like, the more I'm thinking about it there, like if I think of like my deemed success in the trades would be having taken a step back from being on the tools as such, stop being a roofer, start learning things I don't know about in terms of finances, marketing, sales, all of that stuff. You master that, you'll have a business. You keep mastering your trade, you'll be really good at your trade, and you'll have a small, it's going to be under $1 million anyway, but you'll have probably smaller. But if you keep focusing on that, then you're going to get what that kind of business would be run like. It is sort of,
it's a job almost.
It's always going to be sort of half a dozen people, 10 people, no beyond. There comes a point in the sort of journey where you hit a crossroads and you just need to draw a line in the sand and go, I'm not a roofer anymore, I'm not an electrician anymore, I'm not a plasterer anymore, whatever it may be. And then I need to go and learn a new trade now, which is finance, marketing, sales. And
I talk a lot about going from the operator to the entrepreneur, going from the tools to the boardroom. Clearly it's what you've done, and it's what ambitious owners need to do. And in order to do that, you need to do a couple of things. You do need to know your numbers. You need to understand where you got to build a team as well. You're not expected to know everything, right? It's about having a management team. You're good at what you do operationally. Okay, I like to look at 3 teams in any business. You've got the operational team that does the day-to-day stuff, manages all whatever it is you do. You've got the management team who oversees that. But also you've got your board, which is your strategic team. Where's the business going? What do we need to do? Right, we're going here. What does that mean in terms of funding, people, resources, all of that stuff? And you need to have all 3 of them. And for me, that's an investment in terms of getting you from here to here. A lot of people, unfortunately, don't think of that as an investment. They think of that as a cost. Same as an accountant. They think of that as a cost. A good accountant is not a cost. A good accountant is clearly an investment.
What size of business, when does a business become big enough to have a boardroom, would you say?
Great question. There's no real answer to that. It depends on your ambition. I've seen businesses turning over sort of hundreds of thousands who have got a board. And they've brought in the right people because they want to go from hundreds of thousands to numbers of millions. It's ultimately down to you, down to your ambition and where you want to go to. Now, clearly, you need to have the funding to do it as well. But there's no right or wrong. I encourage people to do that really as soon as you can. Recognize your weaknesses, but also recognize your strengths. Your strengths are basically in the operational side of the business. Right? Supplement that. Bring in the right people. Bring in, get a good accountant. Have a good bookkeeper who's doing all this stuff. Bring in a part-time FD if you need it. Bring in somebody who's maybe then a bit more strategic, or a business coach. You do a lot of the Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza stuff as well. Get the mindset right as well, and just think of things as being abundant. Don't think of limitations. Think of where you can go. So on the funding, I will generally say to clients, there's a pot of cash in the corner, right? You can take out of that pot as much as you want. You got to pay for it, right? And it's dead getting people to think, oh, well, you've got an unlimited amount of cash, assuming you've got the right type of business, you're profitable and you're growing it. How much of that do you take out, and what are you going to do with it? Because you shouldn't be constrained by cash if you've got a good profitable business and you've got a pent up demand for business. Because typically when people come to me, it's because of cash issues. They've got all of these people knocking the door saying, we want to work with you, and they're saying, I can't do any more, I can't employ any more people, I can't get the materials. But you can if you go and get the right funding, and that's where building the plan and the forecast becomes very important.
It makes sense. I was having a conversation with somebody. It was actually James Sinclair. I don't know if you know of him. He's been on my podcast. He's got like the Party Man group of companies, but quite a big entrepreneur. And I was having a conversation with him, and I was saying, oh, I think I might need some funding. And he was like, right, here's like, he was like, how much do you need? And I was like, I'm not 100% sure. Do you know that thing where you said
Between
it could,
50 quid and 50 million.
Aye,
Yeah,
50
it's
and
somewhere
50
in
million.
between. Yeah.
And then he said, right, well, say I gave you like 500,000, would that do it? He was like, what would you do right now with 500,000 tomorrow? And then he went, in fact, call it 1 million. What would you do with 1 million tomorrow?
Exactly.
And then I was like, oh, actually, I didn't need 1 million.
Yes.
And I'm like,
yes.
no, I didn't even need 500,000. I'm like,
yes.
a couple $100,000 would get me to this next bit I need to go to, and then it would maybe be something later on or whatever. But it was an interesting concept to get into that state of mind of, if you could get the money, what would you do with it? Because getting the money is only one part of the problem. What you should do with it and where you put it to use and everything is another part.
It's something that really frustrates me, because a lot of business owners, particularly in the trades, don't understand they can go and get funding. You know, I'll have discussions with them either before they join or just trying to help out or as part of the Know Your Numbers stuff. So look, we can go and get funding. Yeah. We can take your business from 1 million to 2 million really quickly if you've got this demand and that's the margins you're driving. Yeah. The bank and the funders, they'll be all over you to get this. There's, I remember speaking to someone sometime last year, and they said they'd gone from something like 1 million to 2 million, but it had taken them 5 years. Yeah. And they were saying, I did it without any debt. And it was like a badge of honour. Yeah. I said, wait a minute, if you'd actually done it, if you'd actually gone and get the business funded properly, you could probably gone from 1 to 2 in a year. Yeah. So debt is not bad. Yeah. It's all about risk and reward, and it's managing it. So if you need the right funding, debt funding or investment funding, and it can take you from here to here and you'll make a lot more money, you go and do it.
The good thing about the funding is as well is that you're going to need to know your numbers before you get it, and you're going to need to probably get profitable and understand that. So it's a whole journey on. You can't just put your hand up and say, I need some money, who's going to give me money here? It is a case of, right, I need to run my business a bit better here. I need to really understand things.
I think that's what it does as well. We were talking earlier before we came on air about exit and, what's your number further down the line? Because if you've got that information, you're going to have a much better business. Yeah. You're going to have the visibility in terms of where you're going. You're going to have a lot less stress because you won't be lying in bed at night thinking, how do I pay the wages on Friday or pay this next week or that? Because you've got a forecast and you've got the right funding. Yeah, so it just changes the way you run your business and changes you as a business owner as well.
Yeah, I think I'm quite big on that, to be honest, is the sort of build your business as if you're trying to sell it, even if you won't sell it. Yes. I read a book called Built to Sell, and it's pretty much...
John Morello.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
I know John, it's great.
You actually know him?
Yes, I know
stuff.
John, yeah.
So I think when you take that mindset on, it starts to make you think that like your business should be an investment. At the beginning, it probably isn't, because it is that one man in a van, and it's very much it is just you. But through time, if you can change your mindset to take on these other things like the finances and getting to know that stuff, and then believing that it's your responsibility to know it, and not going, that's just my accountant that should deal with that, or that's just my marketing team that should deal with that. That's all your responsibility. They're just outreaches of you. Very similar again to what you said, is you're the pilot, and each one of these arms are the co-pilot, whether it's the accountant, whether it is the boardroom, for example, whether it is the marketing, like if you're outsourcing your marketing, your sales is probably going to be internal. But I do definitely think that if you've gone through all of that, then you should be looking at your business saying, right, I need to go on holiday here for a period of time and see how it runs when I'm not there.
If you can't take 3 or 4 days, a week, a couple of weeks without checking in every couple of hours or on a daily basis, my argument is you don't have a business. No. If it can't run without you, it's not a proper business. You've got a job. Now, what John talks about in the book and in Value Builder, I actually do Value Builder stuff with John and the team as well. There's 8 key drivers of business value, and one of them talks about the hub and spoke. So if you're the business owner, if you think of a wheel, right, and you're right in the middle, right, and everything comes off you, right, that's disastrous in terms of trying to grow the business. What you want to be doing is building a management team there, operational team, strategic team, so that you're not doing everything. So people are doing what they're supposed to do. And there's lots of very easy things you can be doing on a regular basis to change that. And like you say, yes, put these things in place. You don't need to sell. Yeah. Because by doing all these things, you're going to have a much more profitable and value business anyway. Exactly. The business should be running without you.
If you can look at it and you go, right, we turn over that, we get this percentage of net profit every year without me there. If I want to up it a wee bit, I can step in and I can maybe take that 10% net profit to 15% or whatever. Then I can do it, but if I don't want to, then at least I know it does this, and then you
Yes.
can build your life around that, and
Exactly.
you can do what you've done and go away to Crete or something like that, you know?
Yes, I wrote an article a few years ago about how to run your business from the beach.
Yeah.
And it really is as simple as the stuff we've been talking about. Have all your financials up to date. Have a job management system in place as well. Wake up in the morning, check your bank account, check who owes you money, check who you owe money. Then go into your job management system in terms of projects that are running. Have a sort of red, amber, green. Right? If it's green, ignore it because it's working fine. If it's amber, have a wee look. If it's red, they're the ones to focus on.
Yeah.
So you can do that reasonably quickly, in I don't know, the first half hour of an hour or hour of the day, right? And you can be having a gin and tonic by 10:30 in the morning if that's what you want to do.
Sounds
You don't need to be there
Yeah.
in order to do that. So it's by doing all these things, you reduce the stress, you make more money, and you've got such a much more valuable business.
A lot of that's to do with having a vision. It's also to do with your mindset. Because I've still got quite a bad mindset in the terms of like, I'll come in to work like early and leave really late. And I might have like 3 really important things to do that day, but see in between each one of them things, like I'll just like do as much as I possibly can do, and I'll get probably involved in certain bits of the business that I maybe shouldn't. And it's just because I'm trying to do everything 10 times faster. But sometimes like I should probably look at, like, it's just an old limiting belief, like I should be in work all day, every day. It's just
Exactly.
And I know it's there, I'm aware of it. And some days I'm better at no doing that, but
I hear that regularly. You feel as if you have to be there. Well,
Yeah.
I'm a great believer that the business owner should be doing nothing.
yeah,
Be doing nothing. I mean, owning a business is hard, right?
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would be doing
Exactly.
it, right? We would all have, everyone would have their own business. There'd be no employees, right?
Yeah.
But as a business owner, you get all the difficult things to deal with. You get the things that are going wrong on a daily basis to
Yeah.
deal with. But that's why you bring the team in to do
Yeah.
it and bring the team in to deal with it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be there all the time.
I think it is a mindset thing, because if I think about it, like if somebody tries to phone us and do business with us in the roofing company, it's like there's somebody there, takes the calls, takes the inquiries. The surveyors then go out and visit the property, give a quotation, do all of that stuff, sell the job effectively.
Yeah.
Comes back, finance team takes the deposit, gets the job sent over to scheduling books in the job, gets the scaffold materials ready, gets the right team on the job, contracts managers then run the job,
Yeah.
sign the job off. So everything there is actually all done. Back to finance, get the final bill paid off once the job's signed off, all the rest of it. Then there's a customer care team, anything goes wrong. So everything is all in place there. And the only thing is like, my belief is like, oh, I'm not really working hard enough then. So it's like you go back in. But I guess there is probably a good side to that, whereas it's like we're constantly tweaking, constantly improving and trying to get to the next bit.
Yeah.
But I guess just like for anyone probably in trades, so you're going to go from being a really, really hard working tradesman or tradeswoman potentially, tradesperson. So you're going to go from that, and then the biggest journey that you're going to go on is likely the mindset of, how do I actually accept that I can own an investment here that runs without me, and I can go and then get involved in other things.
Hard work, man. I've been brought up on hard work. The work ethic has been instilled. I think it came from my grandfather. My grandfather worked in the steelworks in Motherwell, and he used to go and do Saturday shifts and Sunday shifts and stuff as well. So I'm guessing that's where it's came from. But it's not about working harder, because if you're working hard but you're doing the wrong things, then you're just making things worse. It's about working smarter.
Yeah.
And the way to work smarter is make sure you're doing the right things, have the right information, but have the right people around you.
Yeah.
And I do mean accountant, bookkeeper, funder, all of that, plus the operational team, the strategic team. That's if you're ambitious. If you're not, if you want to stay where you are and you're happy where you are, crack on, right?
That's fine as well.
There is nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying anything negative in that sense. If that makes you happy, you make a good living, you're not stressed, great. But if you're ambitious and you want to go from here to here, you've got to do all those things. Because if you do all those things, then your business will grow, you will be more profitable, you'll make more money, and you have a lot less stress. You've got to think of a lot of these things as an investment rather than a cost. And that's where it comes back to the mindset as well.
I must say, business is more enjoyable at that level, I would say. Like, just being able to look at it strategically and actually not be thinking, how are we going to pay the wages on Friday? That's a horrible position to be in. I've been there for a long time in the past, and when we finally got out of that, I thought, right, I don't want to go back to that again. And then you do strategize a lot more, and you think, right, I'm going to need to think a bit more long term here. But it is a nicer place to be, that although the business moves at a pace, you can tweak things and you can sort of make it better as it's moving on its way. It's good.
Owning a business should be fun.
Yeah.
But there's too many business owners. I know you're laughing, but it's right. But,
No, it
but
should be. But
I'm using the word should,
yeah.
right?
But it can be fun.
Yes,
can
and
be,
the reason it's
but
not
it
is
takes-
because people don't get a lot of these things
Yeah.
right. You know, they're poorly advised, or they don't know what they don't know. So
Yeah.
a big part of what I do now is about educating. It's about putting out posts and videos and writing books and all these things. And you do the same as well. Just trying to point people in the right direction and help them. At the end of the day, you've got to help yourself.
Yeah.
You know, as a business owner, you have got to go and you've got to soak up this information or speak to people. I know you do a lot of mentoring as well, and that's great. So
just networking as well, even
it's
for
about
yourself.
learning,
You've got to go and tap into other people's knowledge and not be scared to or think that you should know it.
And
all.
that's it. And you've just got to open up your horizons as well, and just don't think that it's only you. Because one of the things that happens in the session one of Know Your Numbers Mastery, right? We'll have 10 or a dozen people there, right? And we'll do a debrief at the end, right? What's your key takeaways and insights? Typically 4, 5, 6 people will say, I just thought it was me that was going through this. I didn't realise everybody else was going through it. Because you all do. Nobody's taught finance and cash and funding and how to run a business. You're not. So again, before I bring people in, I interview them all. So you fill out a little application. I have an interview for half an hour, make sure you're the right fit. Yeah. And one of the things I say is there are no stupid questions, right? Mm-hmm. You take me out to one of your clients and stick me up on a roof. I haven't got a clue what to do. Yeah. But you're not going to think I'm stupid. Yeah. Right?
Like, why would you know?
It's the same. It's the same with the business owners. You've been taught in roofing or electrics, plumbing or whatever. Yeah. So you ask what you need to know, right? And I'll impart that knowledge to you.
Because it's like straight out of school into a trade. For me, it was roofing. At no point during that full apprenticeship or then when I started up on like self-employed, at no point did anyone educate me on finances or P&Ls or anything. So it's literally like, if you've learnt it, then well done.
Exactly.
But if you haven't, like, go learn it.
Go and do it today.
Yeah,
yes,
because it will change your life. It'll change your business for sure.
No, knowing what you know now from a financial perspective, would you say there's anything difficult in that in terms of the basics and understanding P&Ls, balance sheets, and margin stuff?
No, really. And if there's something like sometimes even when. Like sometimes if someone's even saying it, like I'll just go, I don't understand that. So I would go and ask my accountant, or I would go and ask someone like yourself and say, or even go and Google it and just take a few different answers and find out like if it's all saying the same thing. So I just think you're not really expected to know it off by heart.
You're not expected to know any of it in that sense, but you've got to go and learn. If you are ambitious and you want to grow your business, make it easy for yourself. You know?
And I think that's where a lot of this is coming back for me, is around the mindset. It's like you've got to have a mindset and a belief in yourself that you can be a business owner as well, because it can take, like, it's not easy, and it can take quite a lot to go from being like self-employed roofer or electrician, plasterer, or whatever it may be, to then actually being like a business owner.
Oh, it's cute. It's a huge transition.
And sometimes, you know, like when you're making that climb, like I remember multiple times being in like the building merchants or something, I'd come off the tools and you're speaking to people and they're like, oh, you're just doing nothing now. And you're like, no, like, I'm growing a business. Like you'll never have a business. Not saying that to them, but thinking that, do you know, and you're going, you're just going to be on the tools until something happens to you.
Yes.
Or you just got no choice but to retire, or your body's knackered. And I just, you know, you've got to be quite resilient to take those hits on that way up. And sometimes it's the ones closest to you that will say, oh, that's a bit risky, don't do that. You've got to get that mindset right. And that's probably, like you said, the Dr. Joe Dispenza stuff and different people that you can kind of invest in for your personal development. You've got to do that. I'm going to finish on what's your 2 rules?
2 rules, yes. So just to give it a bit of context, some of you will heard of a guy called Warren Buffett, reasonably rich guy. He's one of the richest people in the world, and he's been investing since 50s and helping people make billions of pounds. He has 2 rules for investing, and I thought, right, if he's got 2 rules for investing and it works for his clients and other people, I should come up with 2 rules for any business owner. So this applies for any business, regardless of whether you're turning over hundreds of thousands or hundreds of millions. My 2 rules are: rule 1 is focus on cash. Rule 2, don't forget rule 1. And for me, that just underlines the importance of cash. It goes back to, you can't take your profit and loss account to, the merchants or the supermarket or the travel agents and say, I've made a profit. Yeah, but you've got no cash. Yeah. You can go bust if you're profitable. If you've got cash and funding, you're unlikely to go go bust. And that's why, for me, cash is so important. Get yourself, there's a download in the knowyournumbers.biz website of a weekly rolling cash flow model.
Yep.
You know, use something like that or an app like Float,
Yep.
and really understand where you are from a cash perspective. And as we said earlier, do it every day and ask, make sure there's somebody in your business asking those 3 questions on a daily basis as well. It will transform your business, and it'll make life a lot more enjoyable, back to having fun running a business, and a lot less stressful.
That's brilliant. I'll just quickly touch on as well the cash flow. That was something as well that transformed our business. That sort of it was a spreadsheet at the time, but 13-week sort of cash flow spreadsheet, that became the business. That was the business. Nothing else really mattered. Where's the guys going today on this, doing that, this, we've got this amount of vans, this amount of guys, this material's coming in. It was just very much, okay, but what we've got on that scheduling board there, does that make that cash flow be positive on Friday to pay the wages?
It's transformational,
and
isn't it?
This is quite sad in a way, but we used to look at it and go, that's when we go bust.
Yes.
Do you know, and it might have been like 7 weeks, and we were like, right, we need to do stuff in this next 7 weeks.
It's 7 weeks to
so
fix
when
it.
we get to there, it's no that. And then that became, oh, now it's 10 weeks. Now it's 12 weeks. Then it was like, oh, great. Like now it's 6 months, and then and you extend it and you extend it. But without having that, you've no really got a business.
It also goes back to your point about coming in on Friday and working out how you pay the wages.
Yeah.
Right. You've maybe got 7 hours to fix it rather than having 7 weeks. And the whole point of the rolling forecast is to see where you've got an issue, and it gives you that time to deal with it. Because I asked the question, how do you run a business without a forecast? And my answer to that is badly.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't mean to be critical of all those people running a business without it, but it's transformational. What if I said to you today, Jamie, you're not allowed to use that cash flow forecast anymore, how would you feel?
It wouldn't be very good, no.
Exactly. Because once people start using it and embracing it, I think, geez, how did I run the business before without it? It will transform the business.
One other thing that I was thinking of there is, so I've done that multiple times. So it's been the Friday, you've got like 4 hours to find the wages, and you do it and you pull it off and you're like, wow, I'm so good at that. But like, don't wear that as a badge of honour. Make that the last time you ever have to do that. Go and know your numbers so that never happens to you again, because it's actually horrible. And the amount of strain and pressure you're probably putting on your heart and your body and your family and everyone around you, they can feel that energy off you. So you owe it to them to know your numbers.
It's what it does to your relationships as well. It doesn't just transform your business, it transforms your personal life. You're no longer stressed, and you're not at the weekend, whether you're at football with the kids or swimming or dancing or something, thinking about how to pay this next week. You're chilled. Yeah.
Thanks, mate. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it as well.
That was really good. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Good, man. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. That was very informative, even for myself. Quite far along in my business journey now, but I'm always picking up something else, so it's great to have guys like Craig on. Certainly go and check him out, and he's also going to do a wee special thing for us. He's going to, we'll put it in the bio, but he's actually going to give a place away to one of the listeners for a space on his Know Your Numbers course. So that's going to be the opportunity for you to actually get to that position where you can know your numbers. Guys, if you enjoyed the episode, please like and share and follow and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It'd be much appreciated. And as I said, go and check out Craig on his social medias. His content's always good and very informative and helpful. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you on the next one.